challenges that Christian nationalism faces? What's needed to get it off the ground in a greater way? What are some of the larger challenges that the whole thing faces? Where would you like to start?
Okay, so there are different challenges. One of them is one of the things we are going to need for Christian nationalism to get more traction is we're going to need for things to get worse. Okay. The secularists are doubling down, and I think we need them to triple down. I think that we need for them to sort of show their hand more completely, so that the people who are still resting in personal peace and affluence will say, "Oh, the old saying. I think it was Trotsky who said, "You may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you." You may not be interested in culture war, but the culture war is interested in you and is going to come after you. That's one challenge. And I think the secularists are up to it. They show every sign of being willing to triple down and quadruple down. That's one thing we need. Another thing we need to do, and this is a challenge for Christian nationalism within the ranks of Christian nationalism, and that is, this is something my father taught me. It was a great lesson. He said, never react, always act.
Nice.
Okay, don't react, act. So we want to act on the basis of principle and not react to whatever it is the progressive left is doing. And one of the tells of reactionary thinking is that they don't have brakes. The left does some outrageous thing, and that we think that we are somehow justified in doing some right-wing outrageous thing, right? Just because they veered left doesn't give me the permission to veer right into Jew hatred or racial animosity, hatred of blacks, or that's reactionary. That's not conservative. That's reactionary. Now, sometimes reactionaries will get things right. And the populist revolt that we're seeing take place has conservative elements in it, and it has reactionary elements in it. And the reactionary elements are sometimes correct and sometimes wildly unjust. And so a saying has taken root on the right, Netter, no enemies to the right. And I want to qualify that. I don't want to have any enemies to the right because the left demands that I do, right? I don't want to be a step and fetch it for them, where they say, hey, express your outrage about this, or you better denounce that. I don't want to do anything because the left tells me to. So no enemies to the right simply because the left says that I ought to have. But I have to ask a question. I'm a pastor. Does God have any enemies on the right? Right? And if I say beforehand as a pastor, I'm not going to fight anyone on the right, that's just telling the devil what flank to attack my church on.
All right. So here's something that I'm thinking is a challenge that Christian nationalism faces. I want to run it by you and get your take on it. And that is, maybe I'll call it a lack of imagination. A lack of ability to believe this could actually happen, that our nation, that nations could become more Christian. This lack might come from eschatology, like a lot of dispensationalism, pre-mill stuff, and we lose down here. It might even – I'm an I-mill. I'm not a post-mill. Sorry. I know you won't – yeah. Anyway, I'm an I-mill guy.
I'll still talk to you.
Yeah, I'm an I-mill guy who still wants a Christian nation and thinks it would be a wonderful, wonderful thing for my grandchildren and their grandchildren and so on and so forth. But it might be that I-mill people are also thinking, yeah, it's going to be just a pretty even mix of bad and good till Jesus comes. I am I-mill. I'm not expecting a golden age. But I do believe things can become much better and stay better for a long, long time, and I would like them to if possible. So I think maybe a lack of imagination. And here I'm going to bring in a book that I know you're aware of. I heard you mention it once. Curtis Yarvin, in his book Gray Mirror, Fascicle 1, Disturbance, is trying to disturb us so that we'll want something better. Yeah. He says on page 218, the only goal of this volume was to make the regime change feel possible, imaginable, conceivable, believable, and doable. Do you see this as one of the challenges of Christian nationalism?
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Basically, inertia governs a lot of people's worldview. They cannot imagine the status quo being altered, and so they just go on autopilot until events overtake them. Another great book that would pair up with Yarvin's book would be Talib's book, The Black Swan. Competent historians, after the fact, can show that it was inevitable that this happened. And yet, 10 years before it happened, nobody was predicting it. Right? Yes. So, in fact, many years ago on my blog, I made that observation. I said, basically, every historian worth his salt will give you 25 different reasons why this had to happen. But nobody was calling the shot beforehand. Right. So I made that statement on my blog, and someone, a commenter, wrote in and said, "Have you read The Black Swan by Talib?" And at that time, I had not, but I had it on my shelf. I'd bought it. And so I went over and pulled it down and read it. And okay, this is what we're talking about. The Great Reformation in the 16th century was a black swan event. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a black swan event. So after the Soviet Union collapses, everybody can explain in detail how this had to happen. But before it happened, the Soviet Union was seen as the future, or this great monolithic thing that was on the right side of history. At least that's how liberals thought of it. And so we have to understand, and I agree completely, it's a failure of imagination to say things can't change. And I'm not usually fond of quoting Napoleon positively, but Napoleon said once, imagination rules the world.
Nice quote for right there. A little more from Yarvin, page 141. He has a thought experiment there. He says, imagine Apple managed by the current government of California. And then he says, now imagine California governed by Apple, by Steve Jobs, or we could put it in by Tesla, by SpaceX, by Elon, by Marco Rubio, by any number of other individuals or organizations. Wow, what a different California it would be. But it's hard to imagine that, isn't it? Because California is so far gone. So can we take that and up it one and say, think about what California is like now, then imagine California being governed by Jesus Christ, by the law of God. Wow. And could it be?
Right.
Yeah, it really could be.
Yeah, we can call Yarvin's bet and raise him 10.
That's right. That's what that is.